My friends, how curiously the world works. We imagine ourselves to be the authors of drama, only to find that we are merely actors in a play already written by truth. There comes a moment unexpected, unplanned, when every hidden intention steps into the light, and those who sought to expose another discover that it was they who drew the curtain aside from their own stage. Truth is not a guest we summon at our convenience. It is the rightful owner of every room we enter. It waits quietly with infinite patience until the noise of deception grows tired of its own voice. No mask, however carefully painted, can endure the heat of its gaze. For a while, falsehood may glitter bright and convincing, like glass beneath sunlight, but even glass, when struck by time, shatters to reveal its brittleness. Truth is made of something older and harder. It does not tremble under scrutiny. It welcomes it, as a diamond welcomes light. The curious thing about truth is that it does not rush. It moves with the slow, certain rhythm of dawn, unhurried but unstoppable. Those who fear it spend their days building shadows to hide in, yet the shadows always betray their architects. A single ray of honesty can undo years of careful concealment. And when it comes, it does not come as a thunderclap or a spectacle. It comes as quiet understanding, the kind that leaves no doubt, because it asks for none. Many think truth can be managed, trimmed, or postponed. They imagine it as something pliable, a servant to their convenience. But truth serves no one, it reigns. You may delay its arrival, but you cannot alter its nature. It will appear when it chooses, and when it does, it will not knock politely. It will simply stand before everyone, unmoved by the whispers of reputation or fear. Those who built their worth upon illusion will find themselves suddenly exposed, not because truth sought vengeance, but because it cannot coexist with pretense. There is an elegance in the way truth exposes. It does not humiliate, it clarifies. It separates light from darkness, strength from show, essence from appearance. And while this revelation often feels cruel to those unprepared, it is, in fact, mercy disguised as exposure. For to be seen truly, even painfully, is far better than to live unseen behind a mask. Truth, in its silent persistence, waits for every lie to exhaust itself. Then, with neither anger nor effort, it simply steps forward and says, "I have been here all along." There is a peculiar irony woven into the act of exposure. Humanity delights in unmasking others, an old and familiar habit, dressed in righteousness and cloaked in the language of justice. We love to believe that by revealing another's faults, we uphold virtue, that by dragging someone into the light, we are serving truth. Yet, how often does this noble pursuit turn into a mirror we did not intend to look into? In the very moment one sets out to uncover another, something inward begins to stir, a quiet trembling of conscience, a shadow moving behind the eyes. For every accusation is, in some hidden way, a confession. Exposure is never a one-sided act. The hand that lifts the veil is illuminated just as clearly as the face it reveals. You cannot tear down another's curtain without letting the light fall upon your own. What begins as an effort to shame another frequently ends as a revelation of the exposer's own motives. The envy, the bitterness, the pride disguised as moral duty. People forget that light is impartial. It does not discriminate between the accuser and the accused. When it shines, it reveals everything. The very act of revealing becomes the revelation itself. There is an ancient foolishness in thinking that truth can be weaponized safely. When one wields exposure like a blade, the edge cuts both ways. To expose with malice is to invite the same scrutiny upon oneself. The irony is almost poetic. Those who declare themselves champions of honesty are often undone by the very honesty they claimed to defend. They tear at another's reputation and find that the fabric frays in their own hands. The threads they pull unravel their own disguise. And yet this irony is not entirely cruel. It teaches a quiet, stern wisdom, that judgment, when wielded carelessly, circles back to its source. The light we direct at another will inevitably return, reflecting upon our own faces, revealing not what we hope to show, but what we truly are. The truth is not mocked. It cannot be manipulated into serving personal agendas. When someone seeks to expose another's weakness for the sake of triumph, they stand beneath the same light that will measure their intent. It is a strange and solemn lesson to learn that exposure is never truly about the other person. It is about the one who holds the torch, about the purity or corruption of the hand that carries the light. Every act of unveiling is, at its heart, a test of the revealer's soul. When the crowd gathers and the spectacle begins, the audience is not watching only the accused. They are watching the accuser, weighing every tone, every gesture, every smile that lingers too long. For deep down, people sense that truth has its own sense of justice. It turns the stage, rearranges the spotlight, and reveals that the act of exposure was never an act of power. It was a mirror. To be chosen is not to be favored in the way the world imagines. It is not a crown, nor a comfortable seat among the applauded. To be chosen is to be summoned into difficulty, to be called where others flee, to stand in the light when shadows are more convenient. The chosen do not rise because they seek elevation. They rise because they cannot remain bowed when truth calls their name. Their strength is not loud, nor is it easily understood. It is the quiet endurance that refuses to break when misunderstanding, envy, or betrayal come pressing against the soul. Strength for the chosen is rarely visible at first glance. It does not parade itself in triumph or announce its virtue to the world. It hides in obedience, in the silent acceptance of trial, in the patient resolve to do what is right even when the outcome seems uncertain. The chosen are not spared from pain, they are refined by it. The furnace that tests them is the same fire that separates the pure from the false. Where others see only suffering, the chosen see shaping. They understand that destiny is not written in ease, but in endurance. There is a curious misunderstanding about strength, that it must be loud, confrontational, or forceful. Yet the strongest among the chosen are often the most gentle. Their strength lies not in the power to strike, but in the will to stand. When insulted, they do not crumble. When ignored, they do not vanish. Their hearts are anchored in something deeper than approval. They have learned that applause is fleeting, but integrity endures. The world mistakes this quiet steadfastness for weakness, but it is in fact the highest form of strength, a strength that draws from a source unseen, a conviction that even in silence one's worth is not diminished. The chosen know what it means to be misunderstood. Their motives are questioned, their sincerity doubted, their light mistaken for arrogance. Yet they continue, not because they enjoy the struggle, but because they cannot abandon the truth that burns within them. The strength of the chosen is not the strength of those who win easily, but of those who refuse to be undone by loss. It is the strength of those who stand when standing costs something, who love when it would be simpler to hate, who forgive even as the wound still stings. The world often measures strength by visible victories, but the chosen understand that the deepest triumphs are invisible. It is victory to remain kind in cruelty, to remain honest when lies would bring reward, to remain faithful when every reason says to give up. The chosen carry their burdens not as chains but as proof of calling. Their scars are not signs of defeat but of survival. They are not chosen because they are perfect, they are chosen because they are willing to be purified. To be chosen is to walk a path that few envy and even fewer endure. It means being seen when you would rather hide, being tested when you would rather rest, being refined when you would rather remain unchanged. The chosen do not seek the fire, but they do not flee it either. They understand that true strength is not forged in comfort, but in confrontation with the very things that threaten to break them. Their strength lies in surrender, not to defeat, but to purpose. They stand not because they are unshaken, but because they have learned how to stand even while trembling. Every life is lived between two persistent companions, light and shadow. They are not enemies as much as they are necessary opposites, each defining the other, each revealing what the other conceals. Light without shadow is blinding, and shadow without light is suffocating. Together they form the theater in which human truth is displayed. When the chosen one stands, it is not in a realm free of darkness, but within it, surrounded by it, and yet still illuminated by something that refuses to be dimmed. The world often fears this balance, preferring the simplicity of one or the other, but true vision comes only when both are seen for what they are. Light has a way of revealing not only what is beautiful, but what is broken. It exposes the hidden corners, the small deceits we keep tucked away, the unspoken motives behind our smiles. It demands honesty, not comfort. Those who walk in the light must accept that they will be seen completely, flaws and all, and that such seeing is not cruelty but cleansing. To live in the light is to surrender control over how one is perceived. It means being willing to be misunderstood, because truth itself, when fully revealed, rarely appears graceful to those who prefer illusion. The chosen understand this cost. To bear light is to accept exposure. Shadow, on the other hand, is not the enemy we often imagine. It gives depth to what the light reveals. It teaches humility, reminding us that no one stands entirely in radiance. Every virtue casts a shadow when seen from the wrong angle. Courage may look like pride, gentleness like weakness, wisdom like hesitation. The chosen learn to make peace with their shadows, not to worship them, but to recognize that they exist as part of the whole. To deny one's shadow is to live half a life, to present a mask instead of a man. True strength comes from knowing both the brilliance and the darkness within, and choosing again and again to let the light lead. The relationship between light and shadow is not a war. It is a dialogue. Light speaks truth. Shadow answers with depth. Together they form contrast, clarity, and meaning. The chosen are those who do not fear either side. They understand that the same light which reveals their goodness will also reveal their imperfection, and that the shadow which hides them for a time is not their prison, but their preparation. There are seasons when light seems absent, when silence and obscurity press heavily upon the spirit. But even then, the chosen do not despair. They know that shadow only proves the light's existence. Darkness has no power of its own. It merely borrows its shape from the absence of illumination. When darkness gathers, it often does so in response to something radiant. The presence of light disturbs what hides in secrecy. That is why those who carry light attract resistance. They awaken discomfort in those who have grown accustomed to shadow. It is not that the light condemns, it simply reveals, and revelation, though holy, can feel like accusation to the guilty heart. The chosen are often blamed not because they do wrong, but because their light makes wrongness visible. This is the burden of illumination, to be misunderstood not for what one has done, but for what one makes impossible to ignore. Yet in this tension between light and shadow lies the true calling of the chosen. They are not meant to destroy darkness, but to stand within it without becoming it. Their task is not to outshine others, but to remind them that the light belongs to all who seek it. For light, by its very nature, cannot be hoarded. It spills over, spreading warmth even to those who curse its brightness. And shadow, though it tries to swallow the flame, always ends up defining its outline more sharply. The chosen do not fight the shadow. They walk through it, allowing its contrast to make their light unmistakable. In every age the world seeks to extinguish what it cannot understand. Yet time and again the light returns, carried by those who refuse to let the shadow dictate the story. These are the chosen, the quiet bearers of truth who move through darkness not as victims, but as witnesses. They understand that the purpose of light is not to flee from shadow, but to make it meaningful, to show that even the darkest shape has its role in revealing what is real. There is a peculiar nobility in being vindicated and remaining silent. The human heart, bruised by accusation or doubt, naturally aches for the sweetness of recognition. We long to be seen as right, to have our integrity restored in the eyes of those who once turned away. Yet true vindication is not found in the noise of triumph, but in the quiet realization that truth has spoken for itself. To be proven right without boasting is a discipline of the soul, a proof that one's dignity never depended upon the approval of others. The chosen, when wronged, do not cry out for validation. They understand that the value of their truth does not diminish because it was temporarily misunderstood. Vindication, when it comes, often arrives unannounced. It does not come dressed in applause or carried on the lips of those who once doubted. It appears gently, like morning light creeping through the blinds of a long night. There is no fanfare, no dramatic unveiling, only the calm awareness that the storm has passed and the air has cleared. The chosen know this moment well, the strange stillness after battle, when their integrity, once questioned, stands unshaken amidst the ruins of rumor. They do not rejoice over the downfall of their accusers, for such gloating would cheapen the victory. Instead, they lift their heads not in pride, but in peace. Vanity seeks witnesses. Truth requires none. When a person's worth is rooted in what is real, external validation becomes a luxury, not a necessity. To desire vindication too eagerly is to betray a small disbelief in truth's own sufficiency. The chosen, therefore, learn to wait. They let time become their ally, knowing that time itself is the servant of truth. Lies decay in its presence, integrity endures. There is a rhythm to moral law that cannot be hurried. The one who demands instant justification is still enslaved to the opinions of others. The one who waits, however, is already free. The silence of vindication is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the understanding that truth, once revealed, needs no advocate. Those who once doubted will see, those who slandered will tire, those who remained steadfast will understand. The chosen have no need to say, "I told you so," for the evidence of their endurance says it more eloquently than words ever could. To speak too loudly after being proven right is to shift attention from the truth to the self. And vanity, that subtle parasite of virtue, feeds on such moments, turning grace into performance. Vindication without vanity requires humility, the ability to see one's own righteousness not as a badge to be displayed, but as a gift to be guarded. It demands the strength to forgive those who once misunderstood, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because bitterness is too heavy a burden for those destined to walk in light. The chosen understand that the truest justice does not humiliate the offender, it enlightens them. To rise above vindictiveness is to prove that one's integrity was never contingent upon another's apology. There is also a strange mercy in delayed vindication. When truth is slow to surface, the heart is forced to deepen. Patience grows, character strengthens, and vanity is stripped away layer by layer. Waiting refines the soul far more effectively than victory ever could. The chosen learn through time that vindication is not the goal. It is the natural consequence of remaining faithful to what is right. When it comes, it does not elevate them above others. It simply restores them to where they always belonged. Often, those who are falsely accused or quietly dismissed find that vindication brings not joy, but a solemn gratitude. They realize how close they came to letting resentment define them. They remember the nights of doubt, the lonely hours of wondering whether truth would ever speak on their behalf. And when it finally does, they do not shout, they breathe. There is relief, but it is tempered by understanding. The pain of injustice has taught them compassion, and the silence of waiting has taught them restraint. To live in this state of quiet vindication is to exist beyond the reach of vanity's grasp. It is to let truth be its own defender, to trust that what is pure will remain so even when unseen. The chosen learn that their worth was never dependent upon being believed, that their purpose was never to win arguments but to embody endurance. Vindication in its highest form is not about being proven right. It is about being proven faithful. And faithfulness, unlike triumph, does not shout. It simply endures, steady and luminous, while the noise of falsehood fades into its own silence. There comes a time, both in stories and in life, when everything turns upside down, when the accuser becomes the accused, when the shamed stands vindicated, when what was whispered in mockery becomes spoken in reverence. This is the moment of moral reversal, the quiet, almost imperceptible shift in which truth rearranges the order of things. It never happens suddenly to the eye, though it may feel sudden to the heart. For truth, patient and deliberate, works its way through the tangled web of appearances until the pattern reveals itself. The chosen, who endure misunderstanding and false judgment, are familiar with this turning. They know that what begins as humiliation often becomes the soil of honor, and that what is meant to diminish them ends by defining them in glory. Moral reversal is not simply poetic justice. It is the universe remembering its balance. Every falsehood creates an imbalance that cannot endure. Every cruelty sets in motion the quiet correction of truth. The world may applaud deceit for a season, but time exposes the fragility of what is built upon illusion. Those who stand in integrity, though they seem defeated, are already being prepared for the moment when truth will turn the story inside out. The beauty of this reversal lies in its inevitability. It does not need defenders or orchestrators. It unfolds naturally as gravity draws the fallen leaf to the earth. The chosen need only remain steadfast, for their constancy becomes the thread by which the reversal is woven. At first, moral reversals appear unfair in their slowness. The proud flourish, the deceitful succeed, and the sincere suffer in silence. Yet this delay is essential. The truth must not merely be seen, it must convince, and conviction requires contrast. Light is most visible when the darkness has grown thick. Goodness shines most brightly when it has been doubted. The chosen endure this waiting, bearing the weight of scorn, not realizing that every wound is adding weight to the moral counterbalance. When the turn comes, it is not only their vindication that appears, it is the revelation of how wrong the world's measures truly were. The essence of moral reversal lies in its irony. Those who set traps fall into them. Those who plot disgrace find their own motives exposed. The mocker becomes the moral lesson. The maligned becomes the mirror of strength. It is as though the world itself conspires to teach humility through the most unexpected means. The chosen are not spared from pain, but they are spared from shame, for their suffering is never wasted. It becomes the very evidence by which truth restores them. When the reversal unfolds, it does not merely correct perception. It reveals a greater design. The false exposure of one moment becomes the true revelation of another. What makes this reversal so powerful is its moral symmetry. Every deception, every false judgment, eventually bends back toward the one who issued it. The energy of injustice cannot dissipate harmlessly. It returns to its origin like a stone cast into still water, finding its way home through ripples of consequence. The chosen understand that this is not punishment but principle, the moral architecture of existence itself. No hand can manipulate it, no power can prevent it. It is justice stripped of vengeance, fairness without fury. And yet when it comes, it rarely arrives in the form people expect. There are no trumpets, no grand declarations. The proud are not struck down, they simply fade from influence. Their words lose weight, their certainty crumbles, and the very crowd that once cheered them turns in quiet disillusionment. Meanwhile, the once dismissed those who bore insult and stood their ground find that they are listened to again, though they themselves have said nothing new. The reversal, once complete, feels less like a victory and more like a restoration of natural order. It is not triumph that fills the air, but peace. The moral reversal is also deeply inward. It is not confined to the stage of public life, but plays out in the private chambers of the soul. The chosen experience it as an awakening, the realization that what once seemed loss was actually formation, that rejection taught resilience, and that silence, though painful, preserved their purity of motive. Those who sought to humiliate them unknowingly participated in their refinement. The chosen, in being pushed down, were being rooted. In being silenced, they were being prepared to speak with authority. Thus, when the reversal occurs, it is not only external reputation that is redeemed. It is inner strength that is revealed. There is also a moral education in this turning of the tide. It teaches all who witness it that appearances are temporary, and that judgment made in haste is judgment made in error. The reversal invites humility, not only for those who are wrong, but for those who are right. For truth, when it wins, does not exalt, it enlightens. It demands that those who now see clearly remember how easily they once were blinded. The chosen, in this moment, bear their vindication without pride because they understand the greater lesson, that no one is beyond deception, and that mercy, even to those who erred against them, is the true mark of strength. Moral reversal, in its deepest sense, is not about victory at all, it is about revelation. It reveals the hidden law that goodness cannot be erased, that truth cannot be buried forever, that the right person, though obscured by lies, forgotten by many, or ridiculed by the loud, will, in time, be seen for who they truly are. The chosen do not hasten this moment. They simply live faithfully until it arrives. And when it does, they understand that the entire drama, the accusation, the fall, the endurance, and the eventual unveiling, was not a cycle of defeat and triumph, but a story of becoming. So, my friends, the story always ends where it began, with truth. What was hidden has been revealed, what was mocked has been honored, and what was meant for harm has turned into revelation. The chosen ones, in their silence, endurance, and steadfastness, have proven something the world continually forgets, that exposure does not destroy the innocent, it defines them. When the crowd sought to unveil weakness, they unveiled strength. When they tried to shame, they crowned. When they meant to silence, they amplified. Every attempt to bury light only teaches it how to shine from deeper ground. Every false word becomes the echo against which truth's voice resounds more clearly. And so, when the chosen stand tired perhaps, but unbroken, they do not stand as victims of accusation, but as witnesses of divine irony. The right person has indeed been exposed, but not as the world intended. It was not scandal that was uncovered, but sanctity, not failure, but faithfulness. Let the world see, then, that the power of truth is not in its loudness, but in its endurance. Let it learn that those who are chosen are never chosen for ease, but for revelation. And let every heart that has been misjudged or misunderstood take comfort in this. Time itself works for the side of truth. What is real does not need defense. It only needs to be patient. For sooner or later, light will stand where darkness once seemed triumphant, and the chosen will be seen not as victims of exposure, but as the very proof that truth cannot be hidden.